My name is Mtu Sibanyoni. I'm married to Pat Sibanyoni. We've got 2 boys. Stay in Reservoir Hills. I'm a member of the Westville Baptist Church, now home ground. I think it's 10 years now, this year being here. I work in one of the biggest 4 banks in South Africa, and yeah, that's me. Born in Ermelo, and that's where I grew up. And you grew up in that town, which was very small and still small even today. One of the things that has happened is around the 80s, we were forming. I was in high school, starting to feel, young and energetic. And we got introduced. It was the time of the struggle. And, being youth, you got involved in this thing. But I think one of the biggest draw for me and inspiration was to see some of our pastors or reverends being involved in the struggle. One, I remember I was thinking Father Smali Somkhacho is born in Barberton in Mpumalanga. He was very frequenting Ermelo. He's a Catholic pastor or reverend or father. So he was frequenting Ermelo, and now and again there'll be meetings, and we got involved into attending some of his meetings where politics, and because we loved how he was preaching and how he was pushing the line that we are also children of God, even though there were troubles, we were living in difficult conditions. So one got inspired by those messages. And the next thing, which was easier, was to get involved with the Student Representative Council in the school. Around 85, it was starting to get a little bit difficult because I think in July that year, the state president declared state of emergency, which meant the SADF and the police were now allowed to use live ammunition to shoot, and they can detain you no matter how many days they want. So that's when the beginning of our detentions and the shooting, because now and again we'll call for a strike, we're striking for this and to this. And it was youth-driven most of the time, from school into youth in the community. So we drove those issues. And it was always gun, bullets, shooting, and all of these issues. And you duck and dive. And sometimes you go home and police will come looking for you. So develop issues of where do I sleep? Do I sleep in the house? And and it went on. And there was a killing in Guatemala, July 85, of students, quite a number of students. Then being student, as we said, no, we're going to go to the funeral. Hey, unbeknown to us, that was the beginning of a trouble, because we got stopped on our way back. As we enter Ermelo, we got stopped. There was a roadblock and asked where we're coming from, blah, 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 all of those things. Bishop Tutu was preaching in that funeral, and we were inspired by his words and what he has said. And so we were rough and wanted to tell the police where to get off with all the guns that they had. So we were detained for 15 days. That one was short. In 86, that's when the problem started. I think we were detained almost every second month. You got detained and released. We're in and out. One time we were taken for 90 days. That was when it got really rough. It was 90 days in prison. The torture, that was the biggest one. We couldn't sleep, deprived sleeping, we beaten, water cannon at night, you're sleeping, then they come with water and they beat you, they ask you questions, either you're alone on the solitary confinement. And that was the biggest one. I went to solitary confinement one time. I've never been many times, so it was one time. You go crazy. You are all alone with the Bible. For me, reading the Bible and saying through this suffering, why? Why would God allow this to happen, especially to us black people? And that's when I started to hate church, and I said, there's no God. We just felt like there was no God, because there am I struggling and suffering, and there's nothing happening. And when they took us out of the solitary confinement, I think it was 30 days before the release, we were in the cell, and there was one of the pastors from the Catholic. He was there, and now we're sitting here and we're asking this question: all of us were from solitary confinement. Why is God quiet? Where is God when we're suffering and we read the Bible? God says, all those who are heavy burden through and you look after us is God of justice. Where is that? That was the time when he spoke to us and said, you guys, you take it very literally. Because look at that time when you're in a solitary confinement, nothing matters. It's death. We can disappear and no one will know where you are. You start to think about your family. What will my mom do? What will they do? What if I disappear? Will they find me? Will they bury me? How will she take it? Facing death and realizing that I can disappear now. You start to think of God. You start to think, where is God? If I die, where will I go? Where is God? Will he accept me having died in this fashion, being involved in a struggle? Is that a sin? Is that not a sin? So we were grappling along those things. But also angry that I don't see God. When you get beaten and you're really tired of beating and you have not been deprived sleeping and eat sometimes food, sometimes you get angry. So where is God? He was able to preach to us in prison. And he was able to say to us, look, even if we're at this time, I think there's this scripture in the valley of death, God is with us. That's the scripture. Even now, God is here. We may not see God. We may not be able to touch him, but he's here. And he started to speak about God being love. God professed love and wants us to love people. Love your enemy. My faith is strengthened by that. And understanding that hate shouldn't what drives you. Biggest thing that kills us, hating someone for holding different positions. That's life. I hold different position with my wife. We differ on many things, but do I hate her? No. When we started to get involved in the discussions and what we used to call it umkhabodo, when the older people will come and tell us why, because I think they realized that we were young. We just wanted to throw stones, and run away and laugh at the police that were not able to catch us. But they took us through some engagements to say the reason we are what we are doing, to show us the two worlds, the white world and the black worlds, where we're staying, where the white people are staying, the education, all the differences and the injustices. And I think that's what we are missing. Where the church is silent, the church is away from societal issues. I live today because God protected me. I don't believe there's anything, I don't have power to protect myself, but God protected me. The fact that we're doing what we're doing, he was there. He protected us. And I think my faith got strengthened by understanding that people were killed, people I think the other thing is people who have died, and whether you stop or you don't stop, the conditions are not going to change. And there was this thing that we believed in. If not me, who then? Who must? If it's not me who's going to die, who must die? Whose child must die if it's not me? Our system was really made one race very, very subhuman, and one race to another race superior. The resolve to dismantle that was very strong. It's what made us not to fear death. But I think it's the resolve, it's the understanding that what we were doing was not wrong. What we were doing was not against our faith. What we were fighting for was justice, and which is what Jesus would have wanted us to do. And that's what Jesus did himself, to fight for justice when he came into this world. But you can't hate. Just forgive. I think faith-wise, I would have been found by God. I grew up in a family of most of my grandfathers and my uncles were in church, priests. In Ermelo, I know that we had an alliance church. My family played a huge role. My great-grandfather was the one who started that church. My mom is even today, she's leading in the church wherever she is. So I think faith would not escape me. But I think the view on life, I would be different.